Hello, everyone. I'm Deborah Bird, and we're having a special Tuesday edition of Earth Sky Live. And we're here to talk about Mars, my favorite time of this 2-year period. We get to talk about Mars. And we're going to tell you how to see Mars easily in tonight's sky. But first, I want to introduce John Goss. Hi.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
John is a veteran night sky watcher, and he is a former president of the Astronomical League, which, John, tell us about the Astronomical League. That's a club, right?
A club's kind of not all that accurate. We are a federation of clubs,
Oh, I
and
see.
we have about 300 amateur astronomy clubs across the U.S. that are part of our organization. Whereas a club would have 100 people, 50 people, 250, 300. Well, we have about 24,000. So
Wow.
we like to say that we're sort of an umbrella organization for all the amateur astronomy clubs in the United States. So
How
that's
cool.
yeah.
And John was the president of that.
I was. It was a very enjoyable experience too. Believe me, I'm not joking here. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit.
Oh, that's awesome. And John also works with Earth Sky. He is our master night sky cartographer, our chart maker. So let me just click over here and show you one of the charts that John made. So
Yes.
this is tonight. Tell us about this, John.
Well, as you were just saying, that we're now coming into the time for seeing Mars in the night sky. This particular chart for tonight, you'd have to go out probably after 10 o'clock and look in the east northeast to see this scene. But
From the
finding
Northern
Mars
Hemisphere.
for the northern hemisphere, yes. Finding Mars actually is fairly easy. As you can see, we also have the moon for tonight plotted as well. But let's ignore the moon for a second. We also have two bright stars, Castor and Pollux, which are the two brightest stars in Gemini. They are fairly easy to see. And Mars is right below them tonight. And for the next few months, Mars will be right next to them, which I'll get to a little bit later on. And tonight we got the bonus of having the gibbous moon there. Tomorrow night, the moon will be in a different spot, a little bit lower below Mars. But tonight, that's where we are. And as I said, this is probably after 10 o'clock. You'd have a better time of seeing it after 11. As the days go on, as the nights go on, Mars rises earlier and earlier. So in another 2 weeks or so, Mars will be rising closer to 9 o'clock. And that's a lot easier to see for a lot of people. You don't have to stay up so late.
Definitely easier for me since I'm part of the Earth Sky team that gets up at 4 a.m. every
Yeah,
day
yeah.
to produce our
Oh,
newsletter. So,
a few other things I ought to mention about what you'll see about Mars. I mentioned Castor and Pollux are two bright stars. Well, Mars is a lot brighter than Castor and Pollux. And Mars is called the red planet for a good reason. It appears maybe not really red in the sky, but an orangish red sometimes. And so you'll see a really bright object below Castor and Pollux and the moon tonight, and that's Mars.
that is so cool. And so, what's going on here? Why is this the best time to see Mars in 2 years over the next few months?
Yeah, it comes up about every 26 months. We're able to have a really good view of the red planet. So you can see in this illustration here, you have Mars and Earth whipping around the sun. Because Earth is closer to the sun, it moves faster. So it overtakes Mars every 26 months or so. And we're now entering that period. So instead of having Mars and on the other side of the sun as the Earth, it's on the same side as the sun. In fact, it's on the opposite side of the sky when you go out at night to look.
Okay, so that's an opposition, right? When
That's
Mars
why it's
is
called opposition. Yes,
opposite the sun.
opposite the sun,
So
which
the
really
sun is
means,
going down in the west and Mars is coming up in the east.
from our practical point of view, that's exactly right. So when you see Mars tonight, it's going to be up so much in the sky. Well, just turn around and the opposite direction will be where the sun is. Of course, it'll be far below the horizon at that point, but it's 180 degrees, or they're 300. They're 180 degrees apart in the sky.
Okay, so Earth has a smaller orbit. It's the one that's blue here, and Mars is the one in red.
Right.
And every 26 months, Earth goes between Mars and the sun. And when
Mhm,
that happens, Mars is opposite the sun in our sky at an opposition. And
mhm.
that's the period we're coming on now. When will Earth go between Mars and the sun?
Well, right now we're not. It's going to be about another 7 weeks
Another
for
seven
this.
weeks.
Yeah, another 7 weeks for this to happen. But that also means that each night, Mars will be, Earth will be approaching Mars a little bit closer each day now. So each night, Mars will be just a tad bit brighter in the sky than it was the previous evening. So for the next 7 weeks or so, Mars is going to continually get brighter each evening. It's bright now, but it'll be a lot brighter by the time January 16th rolls around.
And so,
Um,
so that's a really fun thing to watch because
mhm,
for the past, for most of 2024, Mars was in the morning sky. It was pretty inconspicuous, but now suddenly it's going to get much brighter.
mhm, mhm. Well, Mars is probably the planet that varies its brightness the most, at least as seen from Earth. You look at Jupiter, it's nice and bright. You look at Jupiter 3 months from now, it's going to be nice and bright. You look at Jupiter 5 months from now, it's going to be nice and bright. But Mars is really bright for the a few months it's near opposition. So from roughly a month ago to another 3 or 4 months, Mars will be bright, and then it dims pretty quickly, just to be appear as an average object in the night sky. It's not that remarkable unless you know what it is and you can point it out to people, but it won't catch your eye like it will over the next few weeks.
Wow. And
Yeah.
so and so that's Mars. It's red. It's up fairly late at night now in the evening, like 10 or 11 in the evening, and look toward the eastern sky. It's noticeably red. It shines steadily in the way that all planets do. You don't really notice that unless you compare it to a nearby star, and then you can see that the star is twinkling, but Mars is just very solid, shining very steadily. Um,
Exactly.
let me just pause here for a second to do something that pays the bills. And that is here is the Earth Sky lunar calendar for 2025. We just got these. You can see that we just opened the box on these here. And we are selling these, and people love them. And I hope that you will come and buy them. And I'm sitting here looking for the text piece, which I'm not seeing, but you can come to Earth Sky, and in the menu bar at the top of our website, you'll see store. Go to the Earth Sky store and buy one of these beautiful calendars, or buy half a dozen of them and give them to your friends for the holiday season because they make awesome gifts.
Yeah,
So,
yes, they do. I like to point out that if you got last year's, or actually this year's calendar, the 2024, look up November 19th on it, and you'll see there's the nice fat gibbous moon like it will be tonight. So these really do show what the moon looks like in the sky.
yeah, yeah, they really do. They really do. And it's really cool if you get several of these calendars. Like, I never realized this before, but if you get several of them in a row, like if you buy them for, say, 2023, 2024, 2025, and you hang them all side by side, they make this beautiful wave pattern that's just so pleasing in the way that everything in
Yeah,
astronomy is just beautiful in terms of the
yeah.
cycles of things, and they
Yeah, it's
look
like
so beautiful.
a rhythm of the solar system type
A
thing.
rhythm,
You just see it.
exactly.
Yeah, it all kind of
Yeah.
makes sense. There is a pattern to it all.
Yes, there is. It's a wonderful thing. So Mars is almost at its brightest,
Yes.
but it's not going to be as bright as it's been at other oppositions. So
Yes.
this 2025 opposition isn't one of the closer ones. And tell us about this chart, John.
Well, as you can see, the sun is in the center, or it's almost at the center. The planets move in elliptical orbits, which an ellipse is kind of like a squashed oval or squashed circle, a little bit in oval. And if you gotta kind of look at the chart, you can see Mars's orbit, which is obviously the one on the outside. Seems to be a little shifted over to the right, and that's due to its elliptical orbit. And that means that at some close oppositions, when Earth and Mars are next to each other, they're closer than at others. And if you go the other side to the left-hand side of the chart, you'll see on June June 27th of 2023 and the one on 2035, they're actually quite a bit closer. They're 35 to 39 million miles away from the Earth. Where now, on the other side of the elliptical orbits, Mars is now 60 million miles, which means that it'll appear smaller in the sky through a telescope and also a little bit dimmer in the sky than what it will in another 7-8 years from now.
Yeah.
And in 2 years from now, in February of 2027, Mars will even be a little bit farther away from us and it'll be a little bit dimmer. It'll still be a nice bright object though, but that's kind of another cycle of the solar system that we were just referring to.
Right. And this just goes on and on and on. This cycle lasts about 15 years. And some people who are watching right now might remember the very special opposition of Mars that happened in the year 2003 when Mars was at its closest to us in 60,000 years. So you can see that there's this June 27th, 2033 opposition when it's 39 million miles away. And then there's an even closer one on September 15th of 2035 when it's 35 million miles away. But it was even closer than 35 million miles, a little bit closer than that on August 27th of 2003. And I mean, it was really amazing that year. It was really bright and just an incredible sight. Like I had never seen anything like that. It was just
we haven't really talked
wonderful.
about Jupiter tonight, but it's up in the sky and it's nice and bright. Mars generally never reaches that brightness, but as you were just saying, in 2003, it did. And now it exceeded Jupiter's brightness because it was so close to us. Tonight it won't be nearly that, but it's still. I don't want to discourage you from trying to find Mars because it still will be bright, but it's something to see. That's for sure.
It is. It's amazing. And what's really amazing is to think that we are going to go there. Before we talk about that, let's talk about this chart. So Mars is doing this interesting retrograde motion. And we hear people talk about retrograde in astrology all the time, but there is a real retrograde in astronomy that happens too. Tell us about this.
Yeah, exactly. As you can see on the left-hand side of the chart, there's November 19th, where Mars is about tonight. In relation to Castor and Pollux, the stars up to the upper left there. And we have the Beehive cluster, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But Mars does change its position in relation to the stars. November 19th, you see where it is. On December 7th, it moves as far east as it's going to get for a while. And then it does a loop-to-loop, curves back. It's January 16th. That's where it's at opposition, nice and bright. And then to February 23rd, then it comes back moving eastward. And that eastward motion is called prograde. And the westward motion, which it's just going to enter here in the next few weeks, is called retrograde. And it's a puzzle because 400 years ago, people didn't understand a lot of this. And they couldn't figure out why Mars would be chugging along in the sky like it should, and then all of a sudden stop with relation to the background stars and head in the opposite direction for a few weeks, a couple of 3 months maybe, stop again, and then take off eastward like it should. So understanding this motion was key to the, I'll call them scientists of the day, to figuring out the layout of the solar system and why it appears the way it does.
And so how do they explain it?
Well, it's simply because Earth is closer to the sun than Mars, so it moves faster. And what Earth sees is like two cars driving down the road. You know, you're in the left lane, you're in the passing lane, which you probably shouldn't be in, but you're in the passing lane.
It's okay.
It's okay. You got to do it sometime. So you're in the passing lane, passing the car to your right. And from your point of view, you know that the right-hand car is going forward pretty fast, but from your point of view, it looks like it's moving in the opposite direction to you a little bit. Not very fast, but it is. So you get around it. That's exactly what's happening.
It's an illusion.
Yeah, no, it's for real, but yeah, it's a matter of perspective and space.
Perspective.
Sure.
Right.
And all the other planets do it too, but Mars does it by the greatest extent, the most noticeable, and it catches people's attention when it does this.
Yes. And Mars moves very fast among the stars.
Hmm.
So that's one of the reasons that it's so noticeable when
Hmm.
it executes this
Yeah, it does.
retrograde loop, as
Well,
they call it.
from our chart, you can see we're on November 19th.
Right.
December 7th, it's not too far off, and Mars hasn't moved very far. And then it starts moving quite a bit faster westward to January 16th and February 23rd. Then it slows down and stops, and then back again. So yeah, it is it can move quite fast.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about tomorrow night. Mars is still going to be up there. It's going to be up there every night
Yes.
now for the coming months. And tomorrow night, something cool is happening too. What's this about?
Well, tonight you will remember that the full moon, not full moon, the gibbous moon was to the upper right of Mars. And then tomorrow night, the moon has moved in its orbit around the Earth, and now it'll be to the lower left of Mars. And the diagram shows, okay, you got Mars and the moon. And there's another object called the Beehive Cluster, which is from a dark area, and you know what you're looking for. You can see it with the unaided eye. But through binoculars, you can see 24 stars, maybe a dozen to 24 individual little stars of this cluster. And so it's kind of an attractive thing because you got three things you're really looking at. And tomorrow night, through binoculars, you'll see Mars in the upper part of the field, the bright moon to the lower left of the field, and then this star cluster, which is so much farther away than both the moon and Mars. It's pretty amazing. The star cluster is, I don't know, 400 light years away, something like that. And the moon and Mars are just, we talk about millions of miles or hundreds of thousands of miles away. So
Much closer.
much,
Much closer.
yeah, like a million times closer than the
Right.
Beehive Cluster.
Right. Right. So this is just Mars is just this little chunk of rock orbiting our local star, the sun, and
No.
the moon is an even smaller chunk of rock
Okay,
orbiting.
you said it. I'm gonna have to bring them out.
Oh, what?
The Earth, chunk of rock.
Chunk of rock.
Mars. Mars is only about half the diameter of the Earth, so it's quite a
Right.
bit smaller, but still
Right.
rocky. It has a solid surface like the Earth, has a lot of things like the Earth, but it's quite a bit smaller. Its gravity is quite a bit less. So if you watch these science fiction movies with people walking around the surface of Mars, well, they're only about 3/8 the amount of weight that they would have been on Earth. So they should be walking more with a spring in their step than just plodding along.
That's right. I want to stop sharing these slides for just a second. Do you think we're going to go to Mars sometime soon? Now that we have the Trump administration, do you think that there's going to be a big focus on going to Mars? Give me your best guess.
No.
Elon Musk is involved in politics now. What do you think? Does that mean Mars is in our near future?
The obstacle of going to Mars, the one that people don't talk about. Yes, we can build a big rocket ship, send it to Mars. It probably won't blow up or anything. It'll take off into space and do its stuff. But the big obstacle, well, I think there are actually two. Big obstacle is gravity or weightlessness. It's going to take astronauts 6 months, 9 months to get to Mars. Then they have to orbit it. And if they're going to go down to the surface, well, after 6 months, do you see these astronauts when they come back from the space station, when they've been there for 6 months? They can't even walk.
Maybe they won't come back.
Well,
haven't you been watching? I mean, The Expanse, dude. Did you not watch The Expanse?
sorry.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Okay. So yeah, I mean, that's the whole deal. And of course, I'm a huge sci-fi fan. Adrian Tchaikovsky and other sci-fi writers have, depicted going out, living in the solar system.
Sure, but realistically,
You just wouldn't come back to Earth.
there's another problem though on going to Mars. You're in space for 6 months. You have to be protected by radiation. And as you know, this year we've had quite a few solar storms that have hit us. Sometimes with really pretty effects with the aurora borealis and aurora australis.
Right.
But still, that's radiation, a lot more radiation than they normally would see. So they have to be protected from that. Any type of protection takes up weight, adds weight to it.
Well, Mars has stuff to build from too, you know. Did you read Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars by Kim Stanley Robinson?
I'm sorry, I can't say that I
You are
have.
not a sci-fi fan, I can tell.
Well, I
Okay, I'm
used
going to
to be growing
recommend
up.
to the viewers, I'm going to recommend those books, Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars by Kim Stanley Robinson, classic sci-fi about going to Mars. And I'm going to make a bold prediction, which is that sometime in early 2025, the U.S. government is going to announce that we are going to Mars.
Hmm.
I'll bet you. Let's bet. Does any viewers out there want to bet with
What
me?
time frame will they give?
Well,
Oh, you'll be there in 50 years from now? We'll be there in what?
oh, not 50 years. Elon Musk wants to get there in his lifetime, right?
Well, he can go if he wants, but you know,
Okay. Okay, then. But gee, the wonderful thing is going to Mars.
well, as you can
And
see, I'm not the guy to talk to about this.
yeah, you would say, come on, John, where's your imagination? Mars.
Yeah,
Okay, tell us about this photo. This is a Hubble Space Telescope.
yeah, it's
photo.
a space. I don't know when it was taken, but I can kind of guess the circumstances it was taken simply by looking at it. Mars
Oh,
is probably
this was 2000. Oh, was it 2003? I think this was in 2003 during the Big
good,
Close Approach.
good, because that falls into right what I'm going to say.
Okay, good.
Because I haven't seen this before, but I'm kind of guessing.
Yeah.
Mars is the only planet which, just by looking at it with the unaided eye, you can get some type of idea of its global weather pattern, of what's going on. When Mars approaches the sun at its closest, that's when it's at perihelion, which it was in September, late August of 2003. And it's a close opposition. It's close perihelion to the sun. It changes its weather pattern, and it tends to have global dust storms. Instead of seeing a lot of bright red and dark red and kind of greenish surfaces on the planet, these dust storms look kind of yellowish, and they cover pretty much everything. So instead of the red planet being up in the night sky, you look at it and think, gosh, that sure looks yellow to me. And that's because of these global wide dust storms. This year, when we look at it, it's probably going to be more reddish orange than yellow, because Mars won't be so close to the sun when Earth passes it this time. Something to keep in mind, you don't see anything like this with Jupiter or Saturn or Venus or Mercury. So Mars is the one you can generally give, as strange as it sounds, from here you are from many millions of miles away, you can give the general weather on the planet just by looking at it. Dusty.
The cool thing about this year's opposition is that since dust storms are unlikely, it'll be a good time to look at surface features on Mars. And that's what we're seeing here. You can see Mars has this white polar cap. It's got these dark markings. It looks like we can see what they call the Grand Canyon on Mars, which is Valles Marineris, which is a long canyon stretching from, across the entire United States if it were set down on the Earth. So it's got some really spectacular geology on Mars that future space people, humans, will get to explore. I have absolute faith in that. Okay, let's move on. So if you look, this is another chart that John made for Earth Sky. I love this chart. So this is what we would call a whole sky chart. And you can see you're looking from east to west to north to south here. And that green line is the ecliptic, or the sun's path. And if you look, this is about 2 hours after sunset, right, John?
Correct.
Yes. Okay. And so if you were to look about 2 hours after sunset tonight, there are 3 evening planets up right now. And 2 of them are the 2 brightest planets that we can see, Venus and Jupiter. So this is a very cool thing to see. So we see Venus and Jupiter now at the same time. Venus is in the west after sunset, and Jupiter is ascending in the eastern sky. And then there's Saturn, that's not nearly as bright or spectacular, but it is kind of golden in color, and it does shine steadily, and it is along that
It's,
sun's
lo-
path, that
it's
green line.
about halfway between the two. And
Right.
we're just talking about Mars. If we had Mars posted on here,
Let's go to the next chart. So this
oh,
is
there we go.
January. This is January of 2025. This is what it's going to look
Yeah.
like in January.
Again, an hour or two after sunset. This is
Yes.
where it's going to be. At midnight, Mars is going to be have moved westward quite a bit, a lot higher in the sky. But as I said, this will be like an hour or two after sunset in the middle of January.
Yes. And then you'll be able to see Venus, Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars just right there. It's going to be a wonderful time in the next few months to look for Mars and to look for all of these planets in the evening sky. So be sure and get out there. And we have charts like this and charts showing planets near the moon, like the one we showed earlier in this show at earthsky.org. If you come to our website and click on the Tonight tab, you can find the very first article that you'll see there is called Visible Planets and Night Sky Guide. And if you click into that, you just find a wealth of charts showing stars and planets in the night skies. So if you would like to see them, be sure and come and check that out. So, John, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's so great to talk about Mars, and I'm sure this isn't the last time we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it again between now and the time it reaches opposition on January 25th. So very exciting.
Mars is just getting better each night.
That's right. But meanwhile, later today, in just a few hours from now, a couple of hours from now, we are going to have a watch party. So this is for Starship, the SpaceX Starship, Elon Musk's outfit. He has been launching Starship. It's the biggest rocket in the world, and it's, SpaceX is under contract with the feds to produce this rocket. And I heard the other day that the vehicle system that NASA was developing to carry people back to the moon, the development on that has been stopped. But Starship, SpaceX's private spacecraft that's under contract with the federal government, is going full speed ahead. And this craft has been having test launches from the beach in South Texas, close to Boca Chica, Texas, which is where SpaceX has what it calls its Starbase. And that is happening later today. So we hope that all of you will come back at 3:15 p.m. Central Time or 21:15 UTC and join us for a watch party to watch this mighty Starship take off. So thank you. Thanks for everybody who watched. And we hope to see you then.